Beware Romulans bearing gifts. In fact, it's probably wise to just beware Romulans. Hi, I'm Joe, and I have two more Star Trek models to show you. Romulan ships, the Romulan Bird of Prey and the Romulan Warbird. These are both BlueBrixx models, and you heard that correctly, a Romulan Bird of Prey. The very first Bird of Prey to appear in Star Trek was actually a Romulan ship in the original series. The Klingon Bird of Prey, which is much more well known, didn't appear until the movie Star Trek III. So let's start with a closer look at the Bird of Prey. The Romulan Bird of Prey was not seen very often on Star Trek. It appeared, I think, only once in the original series before there was digital remastering, which then let it appear a couple more times. And it also appeared in the show Enterprise and may have made appearances in other shows. But its main appearance was in the first season episode Balance of Terror, which was known also for being the debut of Mark Lenard in Star Trek, who eventually played Sarek, Spock's father, but his first Star Trek role was as a Romulan commander, who didn't have a name, but he was shown to be the equal of James Kirk. And his ship, while it didn't have powerful engines, had an extremely powerful weapon and was the first known use of a cloaking device, although in that episode it was just referred to as an invisibility screen. So back to the model. The ship is of the smaller size. BlueBrixx tends to make 3 different sizes of models of their Star Trek ships. They have the larger UCS style, the MIDI scale, and then the smaller scale. And this is at the small end of the scale. I don't know that they made a larger version of this ship, but they, like usual, make a stand with a certain design on the bottom. I don't actually know what that's supposed to be, if that's a Romulan symbol. I mean, I suppose if you turn it a certain way, it does look like a bird, which in this case, this is a bird of prey. And we've got a small printed tile there to indicate that it is indeed the Romulan Bird of Prey. The ship, I think, at this scale, is very accurately shaped. The wings here, I mean, they could be adjusted, or they could come off, but they are pretty well fixed in place. It's actually attached by studs on the side, on the inside, and then there's some more bricks to hold it on the bottom. There are no printed pieces in this set, but there is a design here in pearl gold on the bottom to actually represent a bird of prey, which was also depicted even in the pre-remastered version of Star Trek, where the bottom of the ship did have a bird printed on the bottom of it. In fact, one of the Enterprise crewmen even says you recognize them by a bird of prey on the bottom of the ship. Now, one thing I was a little confused by is why there was so much gold visible on the top, because I didn't remember the ship that way, but I did some searching, and there's actually some artwork out there that shows little gold highlights on the top. So this model seems to be accurate to that. And really, other than me just breaking off this wing, it's a fairly sturdy small model, and so if you wanted to play with it, I think you could fairly safely. The other Romulan ship, though, is something I don't think you can play with very safely. This was a ship that I was actually very curious to see how it could be adapted to brick-built form, because one of its defining characteristics is the hollow interior. How would something hold up with a giant hole in the middle? Well, the answer is not very well, but we'll get to more on that in just a minute. This is technically called the Romulan de Iridex Warbird, which debuted in Star Trek The Next Generation. It actually debuted in the Next Generation episode The Neutral Zone, which was the season finale of Season 1, which not only reintroduced the Romulans to that series, but it also was supposed to be the soft introduction of the Borg. Besides the hollow interior, one of the things I really wanted to see in the adaptation of this ship was, would they be able to preserve the color? Now, this color appears to be much more olive green, and on TV it feels like it's a much brighter green, so it doesn't quite look right that way. Now, this is a larger scale than the Romulan Bird of Prey. I'd say this is one of the middle-sized ships at just over 500 pieces. But I think it tries the best it can to capture the shape of the ship from the show, but there just seems to be a lot that's off with it, because on the show it feels like it's very curved, and the head of the ship seems to be, to me, feels a little more rounded, and this just seems to be very, very narrow. And I guess it better represents a bird because it's got a narrow head with a beak at the bottom here. But I suppose maybe at this scale was the best that BlueBrixx could have done with this model. And perhaps if they had kept the Star Trek license, maybe they would have moved on to make a larger scale model of this ship, which I think I would have been very interested to see how that worked. As for how the hollow interior is built, there are a lot of clip and bar connections. On the sides, you have clip and bar connections for these sub-assemblies that hold the whole thing together. And then these are also attached to this center section here. There are, you can't see them on the inside here, which is kind of the idea, but there are bars inside of these center sections for the clips that are on like the wings here to clip onto. There are several printed pieces here that give this model a little more life, especially here on the head. You've got all these lights, and I think that at least represents well what the ship looks like on the TV show. You've got a few more printed pieces here on the back. And then you've got this is the Romulan symbol I'm familiar with. And then you've got some printed black on top of the olive green here. And this color here is just stacked bricks in black and olive green. Now, the stand has the same shape on the bottom here. And I'm going to take my chances at getting this off of here because unlike the other model, this one is not very sturdy at all. The symbol here on the bottom is pretty much the same as on the Bird of Prey. But there are many fragile spots on this particular model, and I'm learning better how to hold it. Like I've got to have my fingers here in the middle. This piece here on the end is just barely on, and with the slightest bump it falls off. Some of these triangle pieces here, these triangular tiles, are only held on by a single stud, and they like to fall off. The bottom pieces here of the stand don't have a whole lot of clutch power, so when I was carrying it to do this video, I kind of had to hold the stand and the ship together to make sure it wouldn't just fall off. Not that that happened yesterday right after I built it. Here. So this is definitely a model that is best suited for display only. Thanks for stopping by to check out the world of the Romulans. And remember, today is a good day to build.